The world was trembling beneath a sky heavy with silence, and somewhere deep within the folds of that silence the rain waited. It waited with the patience of something ancient and forgotten, like an old song trapped inside a shell. It had watched the earth for ages, falling again and again, never speaking, only touching the dust and vanishing into rivers and roots and oceans. It knew the taste of every sorrow and every joy, but it had no words, no sound beyond the whisper of its fall, until the night when it learned to speak. It began softly, as all miracles do, a shiver in the clouds, a murmur in the wind, and then a voice rising from the rhythm of falling drops. The first sound was not a word but a sigh, the kind that trembles through dreams when someone remembers something beautiful that has been lost. The trees listened, the stones listened, and the sleeping world did not yet understand that something had changed, that the rain had found its voice. It spoke to the leaves first, telling them of how it had seen mountains crumble and rivers bloom, of how it carried stories from distant lands in every drop that fell upon their trembling veins. The leaves quivered and shone under its touch, and for a moment the forest seemed to hum with a strange kind of light. The rain did not stop. It poured its voice into the soil, into the roots, whispering to the seeds about the sunlight they had never seen, about skies that were not gray and nights filled with stars that did not hide behind clouds. The seeds stirred in their sleep, dreaming of the warmth they had never felt. The rain moved on and spoke to the stones who had been silent for centuries, and to them it told the tale of time, how it had watched kingdoms rise and fall, how it had kissed faces that were now dust, and how it had wept for the things that never returned. The stones did not reply, but they glowed faintly in the moonlight, as if remembering something deep within their ancient hearts. The rain spoke to the rivers next, calling them sisters, telling them how it longed to join them, how every drop that left the sky dreamed of being part of their endless journey. The rivers answered with laughter, and the sound of their laughter echoed through the valleys, carrying the rain's new voice to the farthest corners of the earth. Soon the world began to listen. The night creatures lifted their heads, the mountains breathed slower, and even the stars leaned closer, as if curious to hear what the rain might say next. The rain spoke of love, not the love that fades with dawn, but the kind that lingers like mist on the morning fields. It told the story of a girl who once waited by the shore, her eyes full of tides and her heart full of storms. She used to talk to the sea as if it could understand, and sometimes she believed it did. The rain had watched her for years, falling on her hair, her hands, her tears. It remembered her voice as she whispered her dreams into the wind, and when one day she did not come back, the sea grew quiet and the rain began to cry for her. It spoke of her still, for it could not forget her silence. She had taught the rain the ache of longing without knowing she had given it the first echo of a voice. The rain carried her memory in every drop that touched the earth, and now that it could speak, it sent her name across the sky again and again, until the night itself began to tremble with her memory. And somewhere in that trembling the rain felt the first spark of joy, because it understood that it could keep her alive in words even when the world forgot her. The rain fell harder, its rhythm turning into a song that no one could write but everyone could feel. The fields drank deeply, the rivers swelled, and the air shimmered with meaning. It was the beginning of something the world had never known before, a language born of water and light and silence breaking open to become sound. The morning came slow and soft, and the world seemed to wake beneath the voice of the rain. It was not just falling now, it was speaking to everything it touched. It slid down the window of a lonely house, whispering to the glass about all the things it had seen, the people it had kissed, the hearts it had called, and the tears it had met in the faces of those who thought they were alone inside that house. An old man sat beside the fire, his eyes dim with the fog of years, and he listened, not knowing why, but something in the sound of the rain made him remember the days when laughter lived easily in his chest, when the world was full of color and hope. The rain told him gently that memories never die, they only sleep, and that sometimes the sky weeps not because it is sad, but because it must remind the earth of love. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in many years he smiled, and the rain felt it, and its voice grew brighter, flowing like silver threads through the air. Outside the village the rain wandered over meadows and rivers, telling stories to the flowers. Each petal listened like a child, and the daisies swayed in delight. The rain told them about deserts where no flower grew, where the earth cracked open like broken lips begging for a kiss of water. It promised them that it would return there someday to teach even the dust how to bloom. It sang of cities lit by cold lights, where people rushed beneath umbrellas, never looking at the sky, never hearing the soft music that was trying to reach them. The rain said it loved them too, even when they hid from it, because love does not stop when it is unseen. It only grows quieter and deeper, like rivers that run beneath the ground. It spoke of the oceans, its endless home, where it was was born and to which it would always return. It told of whales that sang in languages older than wind, and of ships that dreamed while sleeping in the dark beneath the waves. It told of the moon, its silent friend, who watched its dance from far away and never turned her face even when the clouds grew heavy. The rain loved the moon for her patience, and every time it fell it tried to touch her reflection in puddles, lakes and seas, whispering her name in ripples that faded into silver silence as the day passed and the light shifted. The rain began to speak to the sky itself. It asked why it had been voiceless for so long, why it had fallen for centuries without words, and the sky answered in thunder that speech is born only from feeling, and that only when the rain had learned to love could it learn to speak. The rain wept then, not from sorrow but from knowing that even its silence had meaning, that its years of falling without words were not wasted but preparing it for this one eternal song. And so it fell softer now, a melody instead of a storm. It brushed over the mountains, whispering to the snow sleeping in their hearts. It promised that when the warmth came it would guide them to rivers that would carry their melted souls into the sea, where all things return and all voices merge into one. The birds hid beneath leaves waiting for the storm to end, but when they heard the tone of the rain changing they began to sing with it, their notes weaving between its rhythm until sky and earth became one vast breath. The forest glistened, the air trembled, and somewhere deep inside the sound of falling water there was laughter, the laughter of the first voice that ever was and would ever be, the laughter of creation itself. The rain realized it was no longer alone. Its voice had awakened the world, and the world was answering back in its own way, through rustling branches, through running streams, through the heartbeat of every living thing that listened. The rain had become a bridge between silence and song, between earth and sky, and as night began to fall once more it felt a strange longing, something that words could almost reach but not fully describe. It wanted to find the girl again, the one by the shore, the one whose dreams had once taught it to feel. It knew she was gone, yet it felt she was still somewhere, in its voice, in its endless falling. And so it began to wander in search of her memory, whispering her name to every wind and wave, hoping that somewhere in the wide heart of the world she would hear that the rain had finally learned to speak. The night came again, soft and wide, and the sky was full of drifting clouds that glowed with a pale secret light. The rain fell with the gentleness of remembrance. It no longer rushed to the ground but moved like a dream returning home. It spoke to the wind, asking if it had seen her, the girl with eyes like tides. The wind sighed and said it had carried her laughter once long ago across the sea, and the sound still lingered in the salt air near the place where she used to wait by the shore. The rain turned its path toward that memory. It fell over the ocean, touching its restless surface with trembling voice, and the sea recognized it. It rose to meet the rain and whispered, "Welcome back, child of the sky. I have missed your voice." And the rain answered, "I have learned to speak because of her, because she once told her dreams to the wind, and the wind told them to me." The sea listened, its waves breathing slowly, and it said she was a fragment of light that returned to the deep long ago, but her soul still hums in the water that fills the world. You have carried her song in every drop without knowing. The rain shivered, its voice breaking into 1,000 ripples across the sea. It asked, "Can I find her?" And the sea replied, "You already have. She is in you. She became your language, your ache, your sound, and now through you she speaks again." The rain felt something vast unfold inside it, something like peace and sorrow joined in one endless motion. It began to fall harder, singing her name not as loss but as a blessing. Every drop that touched the sea turned into a note, every note turned into light. The horizon glowed as if dawn had come early, and the rain realized that love was not a thing that vanished but a thing that changed its shape. Again and again it would fall as rain, rise as mist, drift as cloud, and return again carrying her voice forever. It turned to the land once more, touching the sleeping villages, the trees, the rivers. Every place it went it spoke not of pain but of remembering. It told the flowers to keep blooming even when no one saw them. It told the mountains to stand quiet and strong because silence too was a language. It told the hearts of those awake in the dark that nothing is ever truly lost, not even a whisper, not even a tear. The rain became a promise between heaven and earth. It became the breath of renewal in the ruins, the song beneath the grief, the rhythm that kept time alive. It did not need words anymore, for its voice had become everything. It touched somewhere far away. The moon broke through the clouds and her silver face smiled. She looked down and said softly, "You have learned well, little one." And the rain bowed in her light, letting itself scatter across the world as fine threads of silver, weaving through dreams, through memories, through the spaces between heartbeats. And in one of those spaces a child awoke, hearing the soft murmur outside the window. She pressed her small hand hand to the glass and whispered hello rain, and in that moment the rain answered with a shimmer against the pane, a soft echo that carried all its journeys, all its stories, all its love. It spoke without sound, yet the child understood. She smiled and closed her eyes, listening to the endless language that needed no translation. The rain fell on and on, learning new words in every drop. Every puddle, every river that carried its heart toward the sea. It was never still, never silent, yet always gentle, for it had learned that speech was not only in words but in touch, in presence, in being. It had learned that to speak was to feel, and to feel was to live. So it kept speaking to the world in its way, touching every sorrow, every joy with the same tender voice, and wherever it went things began to grow again. The earth, the hearts, the quiet places, all began to awaken under its endless song, and in that song there was her name, carried forever through time. When the rain learned to speak, the world remembered how to listen, and everything began again, without end, without sound, without punctuation, just the steady rhythm of falling light, becoming voice, becoming love forever.